The work session to order. Happy New Year, everyone. And let's first review the minutes from the November meeting. Do we have a motion on those?
So moved. To approve.
Second.
Any discussion on those? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We do have a matter pending before us tonight in the session for permission for a prior applicant whose application was denied to come into the board on for the same property and a similar application, but the request is that they be allowed to come in now or soon, I guess, but certainly less than the 1 year typical period, because what we would be presented with would be a substantially different or significantly different application. So everybody know that that's, and you've read the letter and such. So Andy, if you could just do us a favor and sort of summarize the applicant's position here, and then we'll see.
I do
if
think that we should
questions.
say that I'm recusing myself.
Oh,
from
right.
this because
Yeah,
of a conflict.
forgot about that. Thank you for reminding us of that. Yep.
Okay, so Heritage Christian Services is requesting that the board reconsider the application. They're basing this...
Andy, let me interrupt you for a minute.
Sure.
My understanding is that they're not asking us to reconsider the application. They're asking us to determine whether what they're now proposing is different enough that we will allow them to come in at a time less than 1 year, which is the standard process. So in essence, they're asking us to say that their newly proposed application is different than the one we've already heard and denied. And enough different that we would allow them. So, yeah, I don't know if it's significantly or substantially, well, whatever the word is or the standard is.
They did ask in the alternative if you wanted to rehear it, but if you wanted to rehear it, that would require a unanimous vote of those present, and then it would also require a unanimous vote on any determination that you were to make. So a rehearing, would be to rehear the application. But our code, so generally speaking, you could come back in with a different, if facts are different, or a different application. And our code says, though, that you can't come back in within a year unless it's, I think the language is, I don't have it in front of me right now, substantially different, or, new facts or changed circumstances. And
So it's a subtle difference,
Yep.
but to put it another way, one request would be to hear the same application over again. The other request would be to determine that a change in the application is at such a level, significance or substantial, that it amounts to a new application, and we have a whole new hearing on that.
Yep, and then you wouldn't have to wait a year to hear it.
Correct. And let's take the latter one first, and that is asking us to determine that this is such a new application that we'll hear it as soon as it's submitted and in due course, but certainly less than a year. Okay, I interrupted you, I asked you to say it, and I interrupted you almost
You
immediately.
said it better than I did.
Well, okay.
Chairman, just for clarification, the proposal that we gave you, regardless of which way you entertain the request, is the plan that we gave you. So if you were to in terms of reconsidering the original application, we're still proposing to make the changes
Okay,
to satisfy the board's concerns,
okay, thank you.
just for clarification.
So basically, the changes are, as I understand them, that the access or the exit on the Scribner Road side of the site was originally a two-way right or left exit. They're proposing to change that to a right-out exit only in order to address some concerns raised about traffic backups at the intersection of Scribner and Atlantic. They're also proposing to relocate the garage 4 feet further to the south, which will eliminate the need for one of the variances for the garage. Those are the changes. They also indicated that they want to make sure that the board has all the information relating to the details that the applicant went through over the past couple of years to modify and reduce the scope of the proposal. Also consideration of the character of the neighborhood, and also the fact that other child care facilities are in other neighborhoods of a similar mixed-use type of a character. Also, the lack of the economic viability to use the property as a permitted single-family use. Those were the things that I got.
Okay, so that, if I'm hearing you correctly, we have sort of a combination of, here's what's different about the proposed plan, and here's some either further information or arguments about the application. Let me just ask you, are there any other, let's say, planning or engineering, architectural changes to the application, other than the two that Andy cited?
No, those are the only changes.
Okay.
The other piece of information in the letter was the fact that if we work with the church next door, under the Penfield Town Code, we would not be subject to any of these regulations. So essentially, the town code actually would allow this building, or actually an even larger building, if we work with either the church or the school. We happen to sit next to both, and we did give you the language in the code, which I think is very clear. So,
Yeah, I get that. I'm just honestly understanding how it's germane to the argument about the 1 year, come in sooner 1 year because we've changed our application.
it's only germane to the fact that when something is, it's a very strange distinction in the code to treat a church and a school different than any other. I mean, they're not for profit. Really, why are they being treated differently?
Right.
But when something is included in the code, it is essentially, it is a legislative determination that what's being allowed is appropriate for the location where it's being allowed
By certain parties.
by certain parties. But if somebody drives by the site, right, they're not going to say, hey, I object to that building because it's not a church, or I like that building because it is a church, right? So
But they may change
it's an
their mind when
awkward-
they learn that it is run by a church or a school.
I'm just saying, it's an awkward distinction.
Oh, I hear you, and I understand. So,
I'm saying that a conditional permit use by itself, I mean, this is kind of technical, but a conditional permit use carries a presumption of being permitted.
Right.
And if it were done by a church, it's essentially a permitted use, not subject to any zoning restrictions. So I'm just pointing it out because I think it's relevant to, there has been some determination that a building of this size and magnitude would be fine on this site.
okay.
I
That's
fail
the
to
point.
see how an exception to a rule abrogates the rule. And that's in essence what she's saying.
Yeah, and again, I'm not, it is sort of interesting, but I don't think it's germane to the issue, so let's deal with that.
At the end of the day, we wanted to offer the changes because I understand that when the board decided this application, I think that the applicant really had not realized that the board was planning to decide it that night, and they heard that there was a concern for traffic, and they're willing to make these changes to address that concern.
But there was also a large concern about the size of the building being on that. To say it was just about traffic, I don't think that's fully what the denial was about also.
Yeah.
It was about the size of the building on that particular size lot.
I appreciate that. Can I sit at the table? Is that okay?
Sure.
Just to come up and discuss a little bit. So, again, I wasn't involved in the application, and I do appreciate that relative to the code, and for the, I appreciate that consideration. So essentially, from what if I looked at the information after the fact, and I talked to them afterwards, they do need this size building to achieve what they want. This is not an atypical size building for this type of a use. I don't know if the board considered, because I didn't see it in the record, the size of the adjacent buildings, and I think the school is, how big is the school? The school is tremendous. And the church that's next door is tremendous. And
You
this
mean,
building,
you're talking about their square footage?
yeah, right, the parcels are huge.
I don't know that came up, but,
Yeah, so the church is 21,668 square feet in size on a 5-acre parcel. And the school is almost 300, it's 285,000 square feet on 41 acres. So in terms of the size.
But we have to
for
apply the
corner.
code, right?
Right, but we're here for a variance based on the facts
Well,
of the specific case.
And actually, we're here now.
You're not, you're just deciding whether this is
Yes. So let's,
substantially different.
I hear you. Let's discuss that issue, okay? The people that are not recused from this. So we have an application that does differ from the one which we heard and acted upon previously. And those are the matters that Andy mentioned. I will tell you from my perspective, the changes are significant enough that would, that I'd be willing to say waive the 1 year and have them come in again. I'm not talking at all about the merits of the application, but to me personally, the main reason for my vote against the application originally was the traffic issue on Scribner. And I think that what they're proposing at this point in that regard is addresses that issue in a substantial enough manner to change it. That's me. And because we only have 4 members sitting on this, we need 3 of 4 members, if I'm not mistaken, to allow this to come in less than a year under this because it's substantially
But I
different.
think we have to point out then that that's a contingent change in condition, because they may not be able to make that.
True, sure, that's
There's 2 or 3
understood.
different agencies that have to agree to it.
We can
If they don't
correct that. I apologize. Amy Dake, who is our traffic consultant, I have had a chance to talk to her about that, and we are in a position where we can commit to that change.
Okay,
When I submitted the letter, I did not know that to be the fact.
okay.
Is that change exit only? Or still entering as well on that street, or just?
Yeah, cars going south on Scribner will be able to turn left into there.
So still pulling?
Yes.
You're right. But if we were in front of the board, we can have more of a discussion
Right,
of the substance of the application. Tonight, we'd like to request that you be willing to entertain this application.
Okay. Any other thoughts on?
Yeah, with all due respect, I disagree with you, Dan. I think it's not enough of a change. The garage variance is an accessory structure, small, that wasn't, I don't think that had a big part in the denial of this thing originally. I think the building's too large for the lot in that location. There may be other buildings bigger on bigger lots, but we're talking about this lot and this location. And I don't see where that is anywhere close to what I would consider a substantial enough change to allow them to come back.
Okay,
I have to agree with Mike, that was my point.
okay.
I'll say the entrance exit is, I think it's enough to say that, I mean, that was a concern for us, where I'd say that's something that I would consider. But I think there was still a lot of other, I mean, when we look at the size of the other variances and how substantial they were, compared to the application, that's, there's still a lot of weight on, in terms of, the size of the building. I mean, that was a variance 44% larger than what was allowed. The setback for the accessory structure, that was a minimal one as well for me. I guess I'd be willing to have them come back if they wanted to. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Just in terms of the traffic, I think there's enough to say that it's changed, and the fact that they're eliminating one of the variances from the application would be, you're also looking at changing several variances that they're looking at.
Okay.
I think they definitely had the opportunity to make that change.
Well, I agree too with that.
And they would not take it. I don't think they're entitled to a second bite of the apple. Otherwise, I think we're going to be getting more and more of these reapplications in the future. The code allows, a significant number of people to agree on the board to have it done, and I think that's for a reason, that we don't rehear things 2 times.
Okay. Anything else? Well, then, just formally, I'll make a motion to allow them to come in based upon their representations for less than a year.
I'll second it for the vote.
Seconded for the vote. Okay, all those in favor of my motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so that doesn't carry. I know. Any other discussion or motions?
So I'll make a motion to deny, if that's,
I don't think you need to, do you?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, they need a...
We need to make a majority of determination that was enough.
I mean, effectively it fails, it's really no action, but you need the resolution to pass in order to allow them to come in within a year.
Okay.
So unless you amend the motion and they change, effectively, I mean, it's really no action, I think, but it's effective.
But you're essentially not allowing them to come back in.
By that vote, yes. So, well, we still have the reconsideration of the original application, and I don't know,
And we would be willing to amend, obviously, the application.
no, I get it, but, I mean, that is, and that is something, if my understanding is correct, requires a unanimous
Yes.
vote.
This was going to be a rehearing.
Okay. So, on that request, I would, well, I'm a little bit confused about that because it's,
I'm not sure why we need to. I
well,
don't understand the difference.
because the request was made, but it's for a rehearing, it's either a rehearing of the same application or a substantially different application.
Yeah,
So,
so the principles of res judicata would normally apply unless there's either a rehearing, which could be something that they're asking for, or unless there's different different circumstances. Different circumstances would allow, a reapplication generally, but our code says, but you can't come in for a year unless the board determines that it's, whatever our language is, substantially different.
okay.
So they're kind of similar requests, but I don't think that they're exactly the same. A rehearing requires a unanimous vote.
Are you requesting that we take a vote on that issue as well?
I don't think it's necessary, because I think we're not
Yeah.
going to get there, but
Well,
let me
I
explore
agree.
this a little bit, because I'm trying to understand exactly. So the issue you have is with the size of the building? And
And the traffic.
And the
Yeah.
fact that the proposed new application hasn't changed enough?
No.
Because again, we're not talking about the merits tonight. Neither of you believe that the application has changed enough, we'll say, to waive that 1-year waiting period?
No,
And that's fine, I just want to,
Yeah.
she's asking for clarification and...
I am, because I'm trying to decide, what they're going to do. They
Yeah.
own this property. Their option is to just go and work with the church next door.
Or wait a couple more months,
Or wait a couple more
however it is,
months,
and
right?
come in with
And I'm
whatever
not sure I
application they
understand what
want.
the issue with the size is, other than there's a numerical comment that was made about the percentage of the variance.
It's a
I'm not
massive
really sure.
variance,
Yeah, it's a mass-
44% larger than what's allowed by code.
So you're basing it
I
basically
mean,
on the
that was
number.
one of the aspects. It's a big,
it's one of the criteria that we have to apply.
I don't think that, to say we're based, tonight's decision...
Right.
No.
No, I'm
Is-
just trying to understand so that we
The
can go
prior
back and
decision?
assess what the options are.
Oh, yeah.
so.
Well, it's, I would say the record on that speaks for itself, and we're not redoing that one tonight. For clarification, sure, but those would all not be part of the prior record, and, you can meet and talk, whomever will give you the time, that's fine by me.
Those are kind of spelled out a little, I know, I got it in your materials here, but under the third, whether the request is substantial, they kind of laid out like all the different,
Correct, I saw the percentages. But they also issued a negative declaration saying that, which is a determination that there's no adverse environmental impact from it. So to me, that's a statement that there's no adverse impact from the variances, and yet the variance is too large. So there's a contradiction in there, to me, in terms of what that is.
Okay.
So, anyway,
Yeah,
I appreciate your time.
You're
Thanks.
welcome, you're welcome. All right, anything else? And, well, tonight's application, do we have any questions on that for clarification? It's, there's a lot of numbers, and we went through it once before. Having said that, it seems to me that it's, with your usual skill and prowess, we could probably move through that one
Yeah, I think,
relatively quickly. But obviously, if we have questions, we have questions. Anything else to handle in the work session?
Can I just make one comment?
Of course.
I think in the interest of expediting it, that we deal with the changes that were made to the original plan that we approved and sort of take it on that basis rather than to go back and redo everything. I mean, you got the building switched around and you got, those are the main changes. Everything else is less restrictive than.
Sounds like a very efficient way to handle it, Mike.
And do we want to just vote on it up top, Joe?
I think we do.
The one thing I will note is I think it's actually an unlisted action, not a type 2 action.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what it was the first time.
very good. All right, then, let's not, is everybody okay with not even recessing, going right into the public hearing?
Sure.
Let's do that. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're going to launch right into our regularly scheduled meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals tonight. So Happy New Year to everyone, and may we have the first application, please. Thought you had more time, huh?
Yeah. Mitchell Design Build, 7607 Commons Boulevard, Victor, New York, 14564. On behalf of Kevin Farrell, requests area variances under Section 250-14.3 of the code to allow storage buildings with less setback than required under Sections 250-5.6-D3 of the code and Section 250-5.7-D3 of the code. Less buffer than required under Sections 250-7.2-A and 250-7.2-B of the code, and greater lot coverage than permitted under Sections 250-5.6-D2 and 250-5.7-D2 of the code at 1677 Penfield Road. The property is currently or formerly owned by Lynn Perry Properties LLC and is zoned limited business and general business. SBL number 138.08-1-42.41. This is application number 20Z-0001.
Hello.
Hi there. Good evening, Board. My name is Brad Humberstone. I'm with Mitchell Design Build. I'm the Director of Architecture, and I am representing, as Andy said, Kevin Farrell of Penfield Storage. So this has been quite a process, this whole project. Brief history on the submissions that we've done over the last couple of years. This project was first submitted to the Zoning Board in December of 2016 for a conditional use permit and was granted on January 5th, 2017. The project was then jointly submitted to the Planning Board and Zoning Board for site approval and bulk variances in January and February of 2017. The Zoning Board granted all of the requested variances on April 20th, 2017. The Planning Board approved the project on April 27th, 2017. Then, for reasons of financial and other items, this project went through a redesign, which moved the three-story building from the front portion, which borders Penfield Road, to the back lot. And the redesign also changed that building on the front lot from a three-story building to a single-story building. The single-story building now still carries the same exact use as what was originally proposed in 2017, which included storage facility, an office, and an apartment for the general manager of the office. The redesigned plans were then submitted to the Planning Board in February of 2018 and received approval on March 22nd, 2018. And the Planning Board reapproved the project in December of 2019, since that approval had kind of lapsed and it was over a year old. We are here tonight currently requesting approval by the Zoning Board as a final step to move forward with the project. We feel that the revised proposed plans provide a better project to the town because it moves a three-story from the front, the Penfield Road, the more prominent viewing, to the back lot, which is a general business zone lot, and it decreases the height of the proposed building on the front lot, now down to a one-story building. It's also of note that all of the previous approved variances, which are still required and requested, are either the same as they were previously approved or better. Slight improvements from the previously approved variances. And then on the second page of the 8.5 by 11s is kind of the nice handy requested variance, the requirement by code, and then the comparison, side-by-side comparisons of what was previously approved in 2017 and what we were looking for approval on today. And again, you can go through those and see that everything is either the same or better. This project is requested reapproval because honestly, we were ready to move forward with construction. The plan would be to do minor work as soon as possible in the winter months and then start major construction come springtime. That's it.
Okay, the building that's going from a one-story to a three-story.
Yes.
It's the first of the old storage buildings, the one that's closest to
Yep.
Penfield Road.
Yes.
Bring Mike's mic down.
Oh, sorry. Gotcha. What's the square footage of that building as opposed to what you're putting in the front now?
Off the top of my head,
Is it, well, just generally smaller, larger, the same?
it's larger. Yeah, I mean, this, from the
No,
previous plan in 2017 did not have, it had this building remaining as is.
right.
We are now,
No, I don't think you understand my question.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, the plan that was approved already
yes,
by the planning board and the variances by us, have an extension to the 5 existing buildings in the back. Okay, one of which is the building that's going to be replaced with the 3-story. But if you take that first building with the extra, how does that relate to the building you're now putting in the front? They're both 1-story. It looks to be wider, but in at least maybe not, maybe a little bit longer.
20 feet wider.
So does that increase the amount of storage spaces?
yes.
Are you losing some there?
No, we're gaining storage spaces. That building is now a 3-story building.
No. If we were to take that building and put it in the front,
Yes.
how does that compare with what you're proposing to put in the front?
The front building is drastically smaller.
Okay. That's sort of what it looks like, because you have the unit sizes sort of in purple here.
Yep.
With those. Okay.
Yes.
So you're putting, in effect, you're swapping that building for a lesser one
Yes.
and taking pretty much, is that the same, it looks like the same plan. The drawings you have on page 2 of the actual, these?
That is the original 2017 approved version.
Okay, and what's it going to look like now? Do you have a,
Go to the final page. Yep. They're not the best renderings, but it was more to show kind of the views from certain human height.
are we
shots
on rendering 9, number 10?
See the top 2 on the right?
Yeah, I see the top
That's
two.
107 at the bottom, is that, and what number are you looking at?
Okay.
I mean, the front building that you're speaking about is, you know, the top 3, essentially. This shot, rendering 3, is essentially what it's going to look like from Penfield Road. And as you can see, it's much smaller height-wise. It's the same width as what was originally approved. And the same length.
That's 1 story?
It is operating as a 1-story building. The windows up here are just faux windows, kind of as a advertisement and to illustrate that it's self-storage. It's something that's very common in the industry. But yes, it's not a 2-story building.
What's on the upper level, or is there an upper level?
It is fake. Yes.
Just
So is it
empty
like
space?
One really, I'm sorry, Mike, what is this? So is it just really one high ceiling?
No, there will be a floor, you know, just for structural purposes to get in there and have to clean windows and things like that, but really it's just a stick-on fake doors. It's, for lack of a better word, it's kind of signage. I mean, if you drive around and you see, you know, at our office in Victor, we've got Victor Self-Storage, which is essentially, you kind of see that from Home Depot or even from
Okay.
from 490, you kind of get that idea. They're just fake doors. It's not a level, it's just a presence.
I don't see, there's no sign on the, anything other than the first level. How do you get?
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, on the rendering. So it's a one-story building that looks like a two-story building from the outside.
Just on the front, yes, correct.
Well, looks like it on the side, too, from what I can see on number 3.
There's no actual second level. It's a tall, one-level building.
How tall is it?
I want to say it's probably like 25 feet, if that.
And do we know how tall the old one was? That's what I'm just trying to.
There were houses, yeah.
The old one was actually 3 stories, and it was like 34, 35 feet. The old version.
No, the approved version, you mean?
Yes.
Approved, yeah.
Andy, do we define stories by feet or by usage, or how do we know?
You know what, residential home is 25 feet, something like that?
Well, it's not really the height, it's the actual, you have to consider the floor below and the floor above, and that makes it a story.
He's saying there's a floor there. It's kind of like if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's kind of a duck, no?
I'm inclined to think that technically, it probably would be considered a story by code.
Especially if you can access it.
Yeah, and is there going to be a prohibition?
Could be a
on
mezzanine as well.
Using it as a story?
Pardon me?
Was there a prohibition put in for them to not occupy that second level? Which according
That-
to him is not a second level, but it certainly
It's an
sounds like it.
unoccupiable space.
It's, did you say unoccupiable?
Yes.
What do you mean by unoccupiable?
This space right here that you're looking in, this is 3 feet deep. That's all it is. It's just so that we can have, it can look like a corridor that has doors on the back of it that you can see from the road, and you can say, this is self-storage.
Kind of like a hallway, almost.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's not a hallway that's going to be regularly accessed. It might have a man door in it to clean, and that is the extent of it. There's no floor over the rest of the space, so technically, the rest of the space is floor to ceiling. and
In that
that's your
situation,
height.
then I wouldn't consider that to be a two-story.
Yeah,
That would be
I'm
one
just having
story.
trouble conceptualizing. Is it that the first, what looks like the first floor, where that blue band is around,
Yep.
that isn't actually, is the ceiling on the first level higher than that?
That'll probably be around the ceiling, yeah.
So, from that point up to the corner of the roof on the right-hand side is less than 3 feet?
In depth.
In depth,
Ah, okay.
yes.
So there's no access to the space behind that
No,
3 feet?
no.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a presence. 3-story, 35 feet is too tall for this space. It just didn't look good. Financially, it just didn't make sense. So we reduced it, but we didn't want it to look like a 1-story space either. So you got to have a little bit of a monument to it,
So
and
it's,
it's just worked out.
yeah, so it's 10 feet lower than the original building?
About that, yes.
And then from a visibility point of view, from the residential, adjoining residential properties, less impact, I would think, since they're looking at basically a side instead of the whole span.
Agreed, yes.
Okay. And pretty much you've kept the same color scheme with the building?
Yes.
Gray,
Yep.
2 shades of gray? Okay.
Better than 50.
Oh, man.
I never saw that movie.
No, me neither. Okay, and as you pointed out, all the other approved variances that we approved back in 2017 are now either equal to or less than
That's
what we've
correct,
already
yes.
approved.
Improved on, yes.
Yeah, okay. That's all the questions I have.
Anything else from the board?
No, nothing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Public hearing is closed, and typically we take a recess, but I think the board is comfortable in not doing that, and so let's go right to entertaining the application.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to make a motion to approve the variances as outlined in the Mitchell's letter.
To do seeker?
Oh, yeah, do you want to do seeker again?
I think we do, and it's on unlisted action, I think.
Yes.
That's right. With negative declaration.
Right. So we have a motion to declare this an unlisted action and also further to declare a negative declaration by Mike, and I will second that motion. Any further discussion on the seeker?
No.
All those in favor? Aye. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, so I think, there's a list here of the front setback at 64 feet, the side at 8 feet, the residential buffer at 30 feet, lot coverage 74%, 26% of which, I'm sorry, I'm giving you the old one. Do you want me to recite each
Just cite the plan
variance?
number if you
How about
want.
S-
Yeah, S101, if
Right.
you're comfortable with that.
I am, and I think, again, the difference is where the buildings are and their structure, and they basically lowered the impact on a number of different levels, from the height to the fact that they're orientating them so that there's less view from the residential properties to the south, I believe. So on that basis, and we've already made other findings in the original variance grantings, which I'd carry over.
To the
to this.
extent that they're applicable, carry them over here as well. Okay.
I'll second.
So a motion to approve the variance is requested for the reasons stated. Motion by Mike, second by Marie. Further discussion?
I think I'll just make a point to say that, the last time he was here, I think all those merits still stand that we looked at when we looked at the various, points
Right.
of consideration. I think those are all still valid.
I agree.
Yep.
Further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you all very much. Appreciate you coming back. Have a good evening. We'll see you next month.
Go forth and build. That's right, I was wondering what happened. Thanks, guys. Thank you, everybody.